My question is about bike handling in the bike. I used to be fearless in the bike, and after a crash in a badly fitted bike, I had panic attacks while I was riding. And this was my tri bike. I don't have the same issues with my mountain bike, but the TT bike is very intimidating to me. Not so much during races, but during the long training days. How to get over this nonsense fear? This is a pretty good question. I've had a few crashes myself and issues where I've felt pretty panicky. But the best thing that I found that worked was just to keep practicing in small bouts. I would take my bike out and ride around the parking lots. What you really want to do is be able to handle the bike, and the handling skills on a TT bike are very different than, say, a mountain bike or a road bike, just because of the positioning in your aero bars. Really, you want to try to do small little turns, cornering, and if you can do that in a safe manner, then you'll feel a lot more confident when you get onto the open roads. Once on the open roads, you almost have to take this confidence stance where, you're in charge of the bike. A lot of the times, if you feel fear, it might override that understanding that you are the handler of the bike and the bike is not handling you. So hopefully that helps a little bit, but it's just small little steps to make the big ones work. How do I figure out bike zones? Should I be using power or heart rate on the bike to guide my workouts? Well, it depends what you have. Power, heart rate, and perceived effort are 3 different types of metrics that you can use to kind of gauge your effort. If you do have a power meter, they're fantastic, but I would really I personally like to compare power and heart rate and perceived effort all together, which is ideally what you want to do. You have all these different types of metrics to figure out your zones. Figuring out your bike zones yourself, you can do an FTP test or a threshold test, and that's basically the top of where you really want to do a lot of harder efforts. For me, I use zones that are basically recovery, zone 1, 2, 3. Zone 3 is like the top of your threshold. The best way to do that is kind of work with someone or look online in terms of determining what zones you want to use. If you're using any type of process like Training Peaks for your workouts and stuff, they kind of have some formulas as well. So you can do an FTP test, put your FTP in there, and kind of experiment with what kind of zones you want. But basically, when you do look at zones, you want to do a lot of time in aerobic. That's my zone 1 that I use, and so that would be something that I would look at if you are being coached, or if you're doing it on your own. Again, you can use the algorithms and the process in Training Peaks or similar online. What is a good way to improve cadence on the bike outside? Honestly, I've been actually doing Amy Wood's Fitness on Demand and also in-person spin classes. I find that spin classes really increase my cadence and teach me how fast I need to actually move my legs to increase my cadence. That transfers over really, really well on the bike outside. It's amywoodsfitness.com. I think it's fantastic. She does a very good job in terms of variety of cadences, learning, energy. It's fantastic. In general, your power output outside will drop with a higher cadence. That's just how it typically works. So you kind of want to look and balance at what your heart rate, perceived effort is, cadence, but you really want to have a range. When I ride, I'm usually around 80 to 85. Some people are at 90. One thing that you can do to kind of improve your power output is look at what all those cadences are being used for, going uphill, downhill, and then comparing that to your heart rate and perceived effort. Heart rate will always be lower on a lower power output. On a lower cadence. But that's not necessarily a better thing in terms of if you're running after. So you kind of need to look at all of these things and put them together and see which is more efficient for you. But I generally do love to play around with cadences because it really is something that is good to have when you're riding outside in races, being able to pass people, going uphill, going downhill. It's all part of the game. Finding the perfect saddle never seemed to be so important as when I began Ironman training. How important is it to find the right saddle for you versus using really good chamois cream and having high quality chamois padding, or both? I find in my training my legs could keep going, but it's the saddle pain that sometimes makes me throw in the towel. Oh my goodness, I could not agree more on if you have saddle pain, it just stops you, or any type of chafing. I believe 100% there's a saddle out there for everyone, but it is also bike fit. You could have a really good saddle and be sitting on it wrong. And so ideally you want to be able to go to someone who knows what they're doing, looking into a variety of types of saddles. You have a really good bike fit, and then go from there. I do almost all my training in a very, very thin triathlon training short, and I don't chafe. I have a really good seat, an amazing bike fit by an amazing bike fitter, Brian Hughes from Fast Splits, and also my coach, Jesse Kropelnicki from QT2 Systems. But that's where you would want to start. Chamois cream and a good chamois obviously are nice, but you're always going to have the issues if you don't have a good saddle.